All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Chappaqua Central School District Board of Education. The board has been in executive session discussing the employment history of particular persons, matters of health and safety, and to receive advice of counsel. May I have a motion to reconvene the public session?
A second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to start off the President's report today. And I will discuss a question about, excuse me for 1 minute, sorry. Things to fall here. A question that has been raised to the board about the legality of a school board member running for elected office on the town board. People have raised concerns and questions about what we can do to address the legality of the issue. We've consulted legal counsel, and these are the rules that apply to the situation. A Board of Education member may run for a position on a town board while remaining in office during the period of candidacy until they are sworn into service on the town board, whereupon their office as a Board of Education member would be vacated by operation of law. We have citations to Ed Law, Section 2112, Paragraph 3, and the Town Law at Section 23, Paragraph 1G. School board policies cannot adopt restrictions to impair board members from exercising their rights to act as elected officials. Thus, for example, a candidate to the town board could not be excluded from executive session when matters involving the town might be a subject of discussion. There are no legal issues in the nature of a conflict, but there are matters of ethics that need to be observed in board member conduct while running as a candidate for office in another local government. Standards of ethical conduct would dictate that a Board of Education candidate for elective office to another government should not reveal information that was lawfully discussed in executive session and should not use information gained in the role of Board of Education member for personal political purposes. If successful in being elected to such other office, the former board member would be ethically bound to maintain executive session confidentiality of matters discussed related to the two governments. The decision to remain on the school board is solely at the discretion of the candidate for a different office, and school board members have no decision-making authority on the matter. So I hope that is helpful to people who have contacted us to ask these questions. Is there anything anyone would like to say?
Vicki, could I just answer another question that I know has been out there?
Yes.
And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew formally that I've chosen not to seek re-election to the school board this spring.
Okay. Okay. We will miss you on the school board.
I will miss you guys, but you won't be rid of me.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to move on to the Town of Newcastle form-based code proposal. So I will start off by making sure that everyone understands that the school board welcomes all children that come to live in our school district. We support increasing socioeconomic diversity, and we would like to avoid conflating the form-based code with support for these values. Our purpose here is to get a more accurate assessment of the impact of the form-based code on enrollment, school budgets, and school capacity, and the town's ability to control future development. So I'll just briefly delineate our process going forward. We've posted our consultant's report on our website. Tonight I'm going to give a brief summary of the findings. We will take public comments on the report, separate from our general public comment period, and we will then vote to accept the report. We will also vote on a board resolution giving approval for the Communications Committee to draft comments on behalf of the board on issues we've discussed at our meetings and in previous written comments. The deadline for written comments to the town is March 5th at 5 p.m. So that will be our deadline, but please do consult the town website and do not rely on us for this information. We can't make any guarantees. I also, before I summarize the comments, the report, I would like to address why comments to the DGEIS are still relevant. There may be some confusion on this point, because at the last public hearing on February 3rd, the town board voted to close the public hearing period on the DGEIS. That is all that was voted on at the end of the hearing. It sounded to some people like the town voted to limit the form-based code to a smaller area in the North Greeley corridor. That is not what took place. What took place is that the town supervisor shared her thinking on limiting the scope of the code legislation to the North Greeley corridor. So I wanted to clarify why our public comments to the code as originally proposed are still as relevant as ever, and just make sure everyone knows this is not a moot exercise. The town board is continuing the SEQA process as applied to the entire original 72-acre commercial district. There was no vote on limiting the legislation, so we don't know how the town board will ultimately vote. We simply heard the supervisor state her personal inclination on limiting the legislation. If the form-based code successfully survives the SEQA process, and the legislation is then limited to a subset of the study area, the SEQA process and findings would have laid the groundwork for very easy future expansions to the entire area without further public comment. All that would be required would be the vote of a majority of the town board, essentially 3 people, to expand the form-based code zoning to the entire 72-acre area. Therefore, this period of time is the only time the public would have the legal right to comment on adverse impacts of the zoning change to the entire area being studied. Okay. So before I go into the report, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the report, and then within that motion, during the discussion, we'll discuss it and then take a vote. So I would like to turn to item 1.1.1 and ask for a motion to accept the consultant's report. Warren moves. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Hillary seconds. Okay. So I'll go into the report and then, I'll turn to the board to see if you have any further comments. So I'm not going to go into a detailed presentation of the report. We've had that a couple of times. But I'll just sort of try to summarize the best way I can. So for those who haven't listened up until now, the school district engaged a project team, Chase & Companies, EcoConsult Solutions, and KG&D Architects to review the impact of the proposed form-based code, which may allow construction of approximately 1,000 new housing units in the Chappaqua Hamlet. The project team was tasked with exploring the implications of the code on student enrollment, budgets, and school building capacity. The school district was interested in exploring whether the DGEIS accurately reflects projected student enrollment, given that Chappaqua is a high-performing school district, which leads individuals to move to Chappaqua specifically for the schools, and whether the projected unit mix of apartments in the DGEIS accurately reflects the size of the units that would likely be built in Chappaqua, and the enrollment increase that might result from those units. The executive summary of the report begins with the limitations of the study. It's important to note that in assessing impacts of the form-based code, there are limitations that are in large part due to the COVID pandemic and the fact that we are not living in normal times. What stands out is the inability for anyone to make accurate projections because the pandemic has changed the way the world is operating socially and economically. So the report notes limitations which indicate that enrollment numbers could be higher than those predicted. Regarding birth rates, they stated that they cannot make predictions at this time of the impact of COVID on live birth rates. With respect to moving patterns and the desirability of the school district, we know families have historically moved to Chappaqua almost solely because of the schools. However, the study could not be limited to our school district alone or to include only those where people are perceived to move solely because of the schools, because there would be insufficient data for reliable projections. Therefore, moving patterns specific to this variable could not be isolated for more accurate predictions. Regarding real estate, COVID-19 has placed traditional moving patterns in disarray. Real estate sales in Chappaqua have substantially increased over the past year, and this could increase future enrollment beyond stated projections. According to data cited in the report, sales of private homes and condos in the Chappaqua School District are up over 30% since January of 2020, and for the third quarter of 2020, residential housing sales increased by 70% over the prior year. Sales and sale prices remain strong in the area, and the rate of future sales and COVID-19 related relocations remain unpredictable. The report also contains information, takes into account backfill. The backfill concept refers to families with children moving into housing previously occupied by residents without school-age children. The models contained here generally account for backfill, and different scenarios assume the increase in backfill compared to current trends. Regarding current enrollment, the report notes that the school year 2020 and 21 enrollment of 3,556 students is the lowest in recent history, down from 4,100 students 10 years ago. However, kindergarten enrollment increased over 17% for the school year 2020-2021 compared to the previous school year. And this increase may be attributed to COVID-related moving and relocation patterns, which were mentioned previously. Now, the enrollment projections were based on 3 live birth scenarios, which were based on averages of different periods within the last 20 years, and also based on 2 assumptions of build-outs from the code. One is the DGEIS ratio of 1 versus 2 bedrooms, and then a flipped ratio that we see here, especially in the conifer houses, 91 Bedford, and the increase in bedrooms requested at Chappaqua Crossing. So the DGEIS assumes a ratio of 2/3 of 1 bedroom and 1/3 of 2 to 3 bedroom units. When I refer to the flip ratio, what I mean is that there would be 1/3 of 1 bedrooms and 2/3 of the 2 to 3 bedroom units. So if you refer to page 2 of the executive summary, scenario 1 for the hamlet, the DGEIS assumptions of bedrooms per unit shows that there would be 150 added students. If you flip the ratio, the report shows that the enrollment increase would be 256 added students. This is compared to the DGEIS projected increase of 96 students. Student enrollment projected to 2034 and 2035 can be seen on page 2 of the executive summary, and also on pages 13, 24, and 30 of the report. And this is for all new units. So scenario 1, with the lowest birth rates, shows that enrollment without new units would be up to 3,596 students, including new units with the DGEIS assumptions. Enrollment would increase to 3,780 students. With the flipped bedroom ratio, enrollment would increase to 3,886 students. In a scenario 2, without the new units, you would have an enrollment of 4,231 students. With the DGEIS assumptions, you would have 4,414 students. And with the flipped ratio, you would have 4,520 students. Finally, with scenario 3, enrollment without new units, we would have 4,855 students. With the DGEIS assumptions, you would have 5,038 students. And finally, with the flipped bedroom ratio in scenario 3, we'd have an enrollment of 5,144 students. Another way to look at the numbers with the different bedroom ratios, if you look at page 44, and this would be for the hamlet, using the DGEIS assumptions on bedroom ratios, there would be a total of 183 students. That number would increase to 228 new students if 30% of the one-bedrooms converted to two-bedrooms. There would be an increase of 255 new students if 50% of the one-bedrooms converted to two-bedrooms. This is close to the flipped bedroom scenario. And there would be 300 new students if 80% convert to 2 to 3 bedrooms. So again, this is compared to 96 students projected in the DGEIS. Okay. And the numbers on page 2 of the executive summary and on page 44 are slightly different because page 2 of the executive summary refers to all new units, whereas page 4 refers to only the hamlet. So that's just an explanation there. Okay, so moving on to the budget analysis. The budget assumes an inflation rate of 2% without capital investments. The report shows the projected budget through 2034 and 35 with the 3 scenarios under the DGEIS. We have had, this is in our budgeting, we have had an average annual budget increases of 1.66% in the past 6 years. The study shows that with the new hamlet units, in scenario 1, you would have an increase of 3.8% in the budget. In scenario 2, you would have an increase of 3.3%, and in scenario 3, you would have an increase of 2.9%. You can see these numbers in page 3 of the executive summary and page 42 of the report. Regarding projected property taxes through 2034 and 2035 with the 3 scenarios, again, if you compare it to our budget, we've had average annual tax levy increases of 1.24 in the past 6 years. The report shows that in scenario 2, you would have tax levy increases of 3.92%, in scenario 3 of 3.36%, and in scenario 3 of 3%. For the capacity analysis, using the DGEIS assumptions, we can see that elementary schools will start to reach capacity in 2027, middle schools in 2034, and the high school should not exceed capacity in the next 15 years. And of course, with the different bedroom ratios, we would be reaching capacity that much sooner. So the executive summary ends with a summary of methodology for enrollment, financial analysis, and capacity analysis. So this concludes the brief summary of the report. I encourage everyone to just go onto our website and take a look at it. We have posted it. I just want to mention a few issues beyond the report that are questions that have been asked by our community. I just want to touch on those questions very briefly. People have asked, because the impact of the number of bedrooms per unit is such a key indicator of enrollment increases. Is this a factor that can be regulated in the code? And we have not seen that there are any clear legal answers to that question, and it will be up to the town to answer that with their lawyers and their consultants. We've had questions regarding the tax rate and whether we can estimate the impacts of the new units on the tax rate of current homeowners. And so I just want to explain that this is not something we can do at this time. The reason that we can't calculate this question, is because we don't know the assessment value of the units. When we calculate our tax rates each year, we have to wait for the town assessor's report, and we're unable to calculate the annual tax rate without this yearly assessment number. We get this for both the towns of Newcastle and towns of Mount Pleasant because our school district has residents from both towns. Also, when we get that number, we get an aggregate assessment for the entire town. We don't know whose house is worth what. So the point is that this is a project for the entire town. It's a question for the town assessor and their estimate. And of course, this all goes back to being a town project. Let's see if I missed anything. I think those are all the points I would like to make tonight. And before we get to voting, I'd like to ask if anyone else on the board has any comments they'd like to make on the report. No, I know Jane is on video, so I just want to make sure I give a chance over there.
Yes. I just wanted to, I didn't want to jump in if anybody else wanted.
Well, hang on, Jane. I think you need to, can you raise your volume, or David, can you raise Jane's volume?
I'm talking, I've got mine turned up as much as possible. I don't know if David can hear me.
We can hear you, but it's very faint. So I'm just wondering, I think we can manage to hear you if there's going to be a problem, but let's just try. I mean, we want to hear you throughout the whole meeting and not just for this.
So you can hear me, is that correct?
We can hear you.
Okay. So I just wanted to, what I wanted to state is that I know that we will all be submitting comments as a board, obviously, but I just wanted to personally say a few words because I know this is our last opportunity to discuss this. This is when we're wrapping up our board discussion publicly about the form-based code. And I just wanted to say that I reiterate some of the things you said, Vicki, but I also want to say I don't want to revisit the past in terms of, mailings the school board didn't receive or any other matters that have been discussed and how some people have put forth a narrative of discord between us and the town board. And I just wanted to say that we as a school board and a town board and a community should all be united in efforts to both revitalize our downtown and to also maintain the high caliber of our school district. So I just wanted to say at the outset here that I appreciate and I respect the efforts of this town board and previous ones that they've made to revitalize the downtown areas. And I really want to state that I support a more vibrant hamlet. I support more affordable housing. I support more diversity in our towns and in our schools. And I want to reiterate something you said, which is that this board takes extremely seriously our job to make sure that every child of every color, no matter what unit of housing that they live in this town, gets the absolute best education that we are able to provide. Now, this board is also tasked with making sure that we provide that education in a fiscally responsible manner. We have to make sure that the 50% of our community members who live here without children, whether they be empty nesters or senior citizens or people who just love our town, that they are not taxed out of their homes in order to support our school system. So what does that do? So what do our jobs then as school board trustees mean with respect to the form-based code or any zoning change that could affect the school district? It means that we have to do our homework. It means we have to get reliable facts and data and information. And that is what we attempted to do here. We do not have, nor have ever had, any predetermined agenda for or against of form-based code or any type of zoning in this town. We're really here to gather facts so that we can make good decisions that benefit the entire community. And I just really wanted to say again that it's our job and it's our duty, but also it's a joy and a privilege to educate and educate well every single child in this town. But we are also tasked with making sure that we have both the finances and the facilities to do so. So did we expect to look at all this during a pandemic? No, but the town board didn't either. And I really appreciate the enormity of their task. And I would hope and trust that the town board respects and appreciates the work that we as a board and this very hardworking group that I'm usually with of very talented administrators has done to keep our school not just up and running, but our schools are thriving despite very challenging circumstances. And we do have to take this pandemic into account, and whether it's just has temporarily or permanently altered how people live and work and where they choose to do so. So I just am hoping that from this point on that we can take all of this data and listen to our community and then apply some common sense, and we can all move forward together in an appropriate manner that can achieve widespread support. So I just wanted to say that, and then we will obviously make some formal comments as a board. So thanks for the opportunity to say that. Thanks, Vicki.
Okay, thanks so much, Jane, for those comments. Very well said. And
Your points are very well taken.
Well, I have a comment too, then, Vicki.
Yes.
So, as you said earlier, the DGIS is being continued to be analyzed in its entirety. I mean, I have my own personal opinions regarding the DGIS and development of the town study here. As Jane said, I appreciate organic growth in town. We need to revitalize the town. We need to have open a town open to everyone. My only concern as a school board member is the impact of this development on the school district. The children of the district and taxpayers that support the district, both current and future. We encourage and appreciate all public comment. We, the school board and the school district, are not the lead agency regarding the FBC, and those should be and any questions should be directed to the town regarding that. The town closed public comment prior to the school board being able to release its final report from our consultants. Some members of the town board have told the community to make their comments at the school board meeting regarding our report. It's not the right place to do it. Any comments made during our public session will be recognized by us. However, we can't guarantee that the town board will actually be aware of these comments if they're able to listen to them or not. I'm sad that the town board decided to close public comment prior to the school board being able to submit our consultant's report and our comments. We weren't stalling anything. We were waiting on our consultant's report. We only received that, I believe the date's February 25th, 2 or 3 days after the public comment session was closed. So I'm not sure what timeline the town board has that caused this. However, we're here for the community, for our district. And we're going to do the best thing we can for our district.
Okay. Thank you, Warren.
Very briefly, because you said a lot of what I wanted to say, but one thing that Vicki touched on, but I think is worth highlighting, is that part of why we did undertake to have our own.
I cannot hear Hillary.
Oh, maybe put some. I didn't turn the mic back on. I turned it off, so it's not a So the one thing I wanted to say is to highlight something that Vicki mentioned and has touched on in past meetings as well, which is that I think what's particularly confusing in this area of the world is that our constituency and the towns is also not completely aligned. That it's not, because school district geography and town geography is not necessarily identical, that we have a different constituency as the school board than the town board has, and that was part of the thinking as to why we needed to look in and do our own independent analysis. And I want to echo some of what's been said already, which is that we hope that this will all, as we are, submitting as part of our final comment to the town, this consultant's report and our final comment, which will be forthcoming on it, that we are looking to work collaboratively. And these are just questions that needed to be raised and issues that needed to be looked into.
And that, we, as others have said, at least I fully support the idea of trying to revitalize areas of the town and to make this a welcoming and more diverse community. And so I don't want anything that we've looked into or are questioning or analyzing to be perceived as in any ways counter to those goals. And I think that the analysis we've done here only serves to raise issues and ask questions that hopefully we will, as a community, get the answers to together and make the best decisions going forward for the community as a whole, both everyone who lives here currently and people who may move here in the future. So I think, thank you, Vicki, for that summary of what was a very long document. No, but I mean, it's a very long document and it is posted, and so we encourage people to look at it. But thank you for summarizing what is a very convoluted document.
Okay. All right then.
I don't have anything
Okay.
to add.
Okay. Christine? Anything you'd like to say? If you want it.
It's my hope that we can move forward and conclude our process here and focus on what we need to be focused on for the rest of the school year to support our students.
Yes. That says it all in a nutshell. Thank you. All right then. So I'm going to, we have a motion on the table to accept the consultant's report regarding the form-based code. So I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of accepting the report, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Jane raised her hand, so Lisa, it is unanimous. Okay. May I have a motion on item 1.1.2? Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the Communications Committee to draft comments on behalf of the Board of Education to be submitted to the town of Newcastle regarding the proposed form-based code. May I have motions, please?
I move.
Second. Okay. And I just want to say that the Communications Committee will draft comments based on what we have discussed at our public meetings and based on the written comments that have been submitted so far. So just that, we just want to make sure that the topics are inclusive so that we have board approval for what we're doing. So I just wanted to give a general scope of what will be, and you all know the issues, we've talked about them. Anything else that anyone want to say about the written comments?
Just to clarify, I'm assuming the full board will be able to review it before it's submitted.
Yes, we will send to the full board. And we're writing on behalf of the board, so the names of all the board members will be on it, and we will send it to you and for review. And of course, if anyone objects to anything, we will take that into consideration. We'll come back and discuss the comments. We have time to do that. We'll take everyone's opinions into account and come up with comments that we have consensus on. Okay? All right. So may I have all in favor of item 1.1.2, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, and now we've reached the public comment period. This is a comment period specifically for the form-based code and for our consultant's report. So we welcome public comments, and in respect for each other's time, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please note that any comments related to the proposed form-based code must also be addressed to the Newcastle Town Board, as they are the lead agency with sole responsibility and decision-making authority regarding the proposal. In order for those comments to be given due consideration as part of the town's public hearing record. Okay, so at this time, anyone would like to make Any comments, please come to the microphone and identify yourself by stating your name.
Good evening, Scott Levine, 149 King Street. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm at 149 King Street. These are the townhomes that are not far from Bell School in the hamlet. The development is 19 fee simple townhomes, and it's home to 10 CCSD students. In my family, Helen and Theodore both attend Grafton. First, I want to acknowledge candidly that our community is in the throes of a contentious land use policy debate. But I feel we must always be cognizant that the ties that bind us together are, and always will be, stronger than the policy differences among us. We can and we will treat each other with love and with respect, and work through our policy disagreements directly and frankly, but without being disagreeable. Second, I want to share with everyone that several dedicated residents, Susan Comey, Dora Strauss, my wife Natalia, and myself, performed an analysis of school children generation from the proposed new multifamily development in the hamlet. Fundamentally, the weakness of the analyses from both the town's consultants and the Board of Eds is that they did not fully take into account what we heard mentioned earlier, that our community's high-performing schools are the key draw that attracts people to accept the high tax burden and move here. The town's consultants used multipliers, the number of students per home, that are based on data from across the tri-state region. The Board of Ed's consultants use data that are somewhat more narrowly focused, but which also include both higher and lower performing school districts. The analysis that we did is focused like a laser beam on Chappaqua Hamlet, specifically the school children generated from the hamlet's existing multifamily residential complexes, which we feel is the best available comparable for future development there. We determined the number of school children and the number of residential units. The multiplier is simply the ratio. We ignored bedroom count. This makes the implicit assumption that the mix of bedrooms per unit and bedroom-like spaces, such as the dens that we've heard so much about, like all of the one-bedroom apartments at 91 Bedford have, we assume that the bedroom mix in future development will in essence be similar to the existing development. So we calculated 327 new school children by this method from the redevelopment of Chappaqua. And to be clear, we welcome new families and new children with open arms. The issue here is that under the specific type of development being proposed, new neighbors will pay very little tax to balance their needs for services such as education. They'll pay much lower tax rates than existing homeowners of Chappaqua, whose taxes would rise in compensation. We will, of course, submit this analysis and the supporting documentation to the town. One final request I'd like to make is that when you have crafted feedback to send to our town leadership, would you please consider also disseminating this to the community at large, ideally through a mailer, which I recognize carries costs, but which communicates most widely and most clearly, and otherwise through an email blast. Lack of appropriate communications between leadership and constituents has been at the heart of the difficulties our community is now experiencing with respect to land use policy. Thank you very much, and we are praying for wisdom for both you and all other elected officials in our community.
Thank you very much, Scott. Anyone else? Please, please come up to the microphone. Okay, seeing that there is no one else, just making sure. Okay. Yes.
So one of the comments was regarding distribution of the comments letter, and our practice has been to email out our correspondence with the town board to the community. So I anticipate we will engage in that practice. Again, is that correct?
Yes, I was assuming so, and we can discuss a mailer. I guess that would be a decision of the board. I would be in favor of sending a mailer because there are many senior citizens who don't, they're just not, their kids are long grown and they're not really paying close attention to to what the school district is doing. And I think it's fair to let everyone know and to reach out. Now, the mailer, I guess the last time we sent out a one-pager, right?
Yeah, maybe what I saw, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Vicki.
No, so I don't know how long the written comments will be. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking.
So maybe we can commit to definitely posting on our website and emailing out the comments to the community, and then I can look at the pricing structure for the mailing, and I can share that with the board on the 17th, and you can decide what you want to do. Does that sound like a good plan? As a
Yeah,
public meeting?
that sounds good to me, although I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I would be in favor of trying to do the mailer in any way that we possibly can.
Okay. All right.
Okay, that's it. Christine, I think it's time for the superintendent's report.
All right, David, can you pull up my PowerPoint, please? I have some important information to share tonight, and I have some updates about the end of the year. And so let me just begin by starting where we always do, where I share in terms of our structure. We're still in the same model that we've been in since September. I also wanted to share some update numbers on the number of students that are engaging in remote instruction, and they are going down, which we're really happy about. So we have more kids coming on site, and we hope to see these numbers continue to decrease. Had significant outreach by our building principals at the elementary levels to families, encouraging them to send their students back to school. And then Adam's going to talk in a little bit about some ways that we are going to hopefully increase the comfort level with our remote students coming back, with the anticipation that hopefully all of our students will be in person come September. What happened? I went the wrong way. Okay. Tony, do you want to just give a staffing update?
It's the highlight of my week. So actually, we do have one change. We had a teacher who was out on working remotely and came back. She's been vaccinated, decided to return. So the numbers have changed slightly, and we'll definitely keep you posted in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you, Tony. And then just in terms of our quarantine numbers there, that's where we were on February 10th. And as I had shared with you previously, because of the changes in the way that the Department of Health in Westchester is having us treat students regarding exposure, we've had a dramatic decrease in the number of students who would need to quarantine as a result of exposure on campus. And you'll see March 3rd, we were very low with a significant uptick due to an exposure at Greeley. Yesterday, I sent a notice out to the community, but still we continue to see very low numbers compared to where we were last fall. Adam, can you talk a little bit about our thinking regarding Wednesday to help transition some of our students back to campus who have been out?
Yes, thank you. So just as a reminder, since the beginning of the year, we've asked families to commit to either fully in-person learning for the following week or fully remote learning for the following week. We've asked families to commit on Thursday through a form. They're going to change their status. So what we'd like to do as we see the regional trends go down, trend in a positive direction, and also we anticipate the weather warming, that we're going to try to encourage some families that are fully remote to consider sending their students in on the half-day Wednesday. So by doing that, we'll have the options to see those remote students who are fully remote now. What we're going to do is we're going to update our form, so that will be updated tomorrow, and we have a letter to send out to the community about this. And our hope is that some of our fully remote families will be comfortable sending their fully remote students in person on Wednesday morning, since Wednesdays are a half day, and that allows them to not participate in the lunch period. We had heard some concerns from our remote families that they weren't comfortable with having extended period of time with a student without a mask having lunch. So this obviously avoids that, because on the half days we don't serve lunch for the students, or they don't have lunch. So can you just advance one more? So some benefits of that obviously would be the instruction, the in-person instruction, as well as the academic support, some socialization and contact with their teachers face-to-face and also their peers. And would also give teachers the opportunity to exchange materials Now that's being done with parent pickup and drop-off. We could update their technology if they're having any technology issues, and we really hope it will support a comfortable transition back, maybe for families or students that are want to be cautious about that return. So we're going to open that option up on tomorrow's form, and families that want to take advantage of that option can send their students in on next Wednesday. I do want to note it's important that for families that are remote, they are not currently filling out that daily screener. So they should fill out that daily screener on the Wednesday morning that they're sending their child in if they choose to do that. So we'll make sure we put that in the letter, and we'll include directions as well.
So I'd like to
update the Board of Education on where we are with some important milestone events for our seniors and what the current thinking is. So luckily this morning the governor held a press conference and he provided a lot of information that was really helpful. I know he hasn't released the executive orders yet, which is okay, but I anticipate they're coming in the next few days. But based on his slides and what he said, I feel comfortable presenting the following. So in terms of graduation, the first thing I want to share is that we're moving the date off of June 19th to recognize the holiday of Juneteenth. So in order to facilitate graduation, which was originally scheduled for Saturday, we've decided to move it to Friday night. And the reason we're doing that is because I'm not really sure where we're going to hold it. But we have 3 different options, and all of those options have to occur in the evening, and some of them may have to be late evening, so it didn't make sense to move it to Sunday for that specific reason. So the 3 options for graduation is that the first we'll have a car-based ceremony like we did last year. It will be at a local college, and we're in the process of finalizing that contract, so at the next board meeting I'll likely have a contract in front of you where that location will be. The second will be, one of the options will be under the tent and grill. Hopefully things will be in a place where we'll be able to do that, and we'll be able to have a traditional ceremony on a Friday in the afternoon. And the third will be, if we can have it on campus but we have to spread it out, we will do it on the turf, on the Greeley field under the lights. So those are our 3 options. What our senior parents need to know is that the graduation will be on that Friday. I just want to be pretty transparent about it, that if we do a ceremony on site, it likely will only be with 2 parents able to be present. But at this point, the way that the rules are, we won't be able to do it on site without having parents tested, and the district cannot facilitate that because parents are not covered under our insurance. And I can't create a situation where if a parent can't get tested, they can't participate in graduation. So, in the way that the current rules are written, right now, if we had to have graduation tomorrow, it would be a car-based ceremony. However, in our meeting, superintendent's meeting with George Latimer, he anticipated graduation guidance would be out in the next 90 days. So we will continue to monitor and adjust, but we are planning for all 3 scenarios. We are going out to bid on a tent. So we'll be ready with the idea that we will be hopefully in person in our traditional ceremony, probably with just some restrictions of who can and cannot attend. That's the first piece of information. Yes?
All right, Christine, so you said he's going to have guidance out within 90 days. So 90 days is basically what? March, April, May, June 1st.
That's what George Latimer shared with us.
So you're saying we have a contract with a local college. Is that how firm is that contract going to be? Are we going to put deposits down?
Right, so I'll have that ready for you at the next meeting. We're still in the process of creating that with the agency, but what I can tell you is that they've reserved the date for us.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe I'll just connect to the senior prom before I talk about senior experience. So, of course, it's our goal to have a prom for our students, but in order to do that, based on the number of students we have in the class, the way that the executive orders are going to be written, based on the governor's presentation today, is that right now the only way to do this is if we do it outside on our site. So if we're able to hold the prom, we plan to do so, and we're having it here on site, the Wednesday before graduation under the tent. We are also bidding on a dance floor. And in that scenario, based on the way that we need to support that event on campus, we will need to test all of our students prior to the prom occurring. So in anticipation of that, we have purchased enough Binex tests to assess all of our senior students. So it would be a senior-only prom. And the reason for that is there's 310 members of the senior class. If each of them brought a guest, which could only be our students because they would have to be tested by us, we would exceed the number of people that are allowed currently under the rules to be able to have an event on campus. So right now, we're planning under the conditions that exist, which would mean we would be having this event, if we were holding it here, under the tent with our seniors only. They would all be tested by us prior to attending. Now, with that said, I anticipate there will be some guidance about how to hold a prom, because the only guidance we have around an event like this is the wedding guidance. So it's my hope that in the next few months, there'll be additional information that we can use to help plan this event. But what I do want our families to know is that this is what we're thinking currently in order to be able to provide a space for our kids to have a prom given our COVID-based guidance and restrictions that we need to follow. And then the last thing on this slide, and then another slide I want to talk about, is that we are going to move forward with our senior experience. We are going to allow our kids to go out and do their internships. We just, as a part of our process this year, we will have a COVID contract for our students and our parents to sign, so I can ensure that kids are practicing the same social distancing and safe pandemic hygiene and guidelines that they would in this building while they're out on their internship opportunities. And if students don't want to go out, they can do a project and they don't have to go out to site, or they can do a combination. So we have all kinds of options for kids in terms of their senior experience. And on Monday, we'll have a webinar for our seniors and their parents to go through some of this information. So the other area that we're really working right now, trying to plan for the end of the year, is we are going to provide two different types of events for our seniors. The first event will be a musical for our theater program. So we weren't able to have our musical in the fall, but we have been engaged in talks with some places that are outdoors that may be able to host a musical for us, for our theater students. So we're in the process of working through that planning right now with our theater director and with the high school administration. So that will be an off-site event. It will be outdoors. And there are some real parameters around when that can happen based on the availability of some sites. And at the 17th, I will hopefully have a plan and a date for the board's consideration, because we'll have to enter into a contract with that organization. And then in June, we plan to hold concerts outside, most likely on the turf, for our orchestra band and our chorus students. Now, based on the way the guidance is written right now, you can have 200 people outside, outdoors, at an event without testing. So in terms of our planning, the thinking right now is we would have these events, we'll live stream them, but we'll let 2 guests per senior attend to watch the concert live, just as we would an athletic event.
Well, that's great, Christine, because, you know, a couple of years ago, Vicki, when our kids were in high school, the band and orchestra used to have, dance band, or jazz band used to have an outdoor concert like the first week of June, and it was right in the parking lot. And people would sit on the grass, and it was a very casual event. And I think this sort of goes almost back to that idea where outdoor music and get the kids involved and the parents involved. So thank you.
Thanks, Warren, for that. And I think we're still trying to figure this all out, but I think what's important is that, we have been focused on supporting our athletes, but we also have been in conversations on how do we support the arts. So we're getting into a place where we're going to be able to finalize these plans now that the guidance has changed. So we have opportunities that we're going to take advantage of. And the one piece that's missing here is the traditional senior musical. Now that's not a school planned event, that's an event with our parents and with our PTA. So Andrew's going to continue to work with our senior parents to see if there's a way to support that within the new guidance that was released today. But in terms of the district, the musical for our theater students, our concerts, our prom, our graduation, those are the events that are going to drive our calendar right now. At this point, and quite frankly, the way that the guidance is written, we're able to make decisions in a way that makes sense for us. The senior musical is a very different event, and because of the number of students that are involved in that, it's much more complicated than what I'm describing right now. But Andrew is committed to continue to work on that with our families to try to support that in some way. And I'm going to leave that to the high school administration to continue to focus on. So that's where we are right now. Now, I also want to share, I know 4th grade moving up, 8th grade moving up, I know those ceremonies are important to our families. I have an 8th grader moving up, but that right now is not going to be our focus. I need to have this done first, so I understand how we're supporting our seniors, and then we'll move into how are we going to support the transition ceremonies for 4th and 8th grade. Plus, I need some more time to pass because the guidance may change that might allow us to do those ceremonies differently than we did last year. So that's my nice way of just saying people have to wait until more information is released so we can make good decisions around how we're going to do those ceremonies. We can't wait to plan high school graduation and theater. We need to come up with options right now. And I think most of the community can understand that because those are capstone events. I view them very differently than 4th grade and 8th grade moving up ceremonies. So that's where the focus is right now. I think this is good information. I feel like our senior parents need a shell of what we're thinking and our kids need a shell of what we're thinking. So we're going to provide that. Andrew's going to send a letter out tomorrow inviting parents to a meeting. I would like to say that there is no reason for people to have to send emails out advocating for graduation in a certain way or for prom in a certain way. We are absolutely committed to doing our ceremonies in the most traditional sense that we can, provided the guidelines allow it. So no advocacy is going to cause us to alter our pathway if it doesn't align with the guidance. So I just want to be clear about that because I know this is people get are very concerned and I know these are really important milestone events. And believe me, we are thinking about that and we are going to do the best we can for our seniors to be as close to our traditions as possible, provided they comport with the guidelines, which will continue to change over time. So we're going to be as flexible as possible as well.
I just wanted to say that thank you for putting in all the effort that I know has gone into finding ways to do things like the theater program, like these performances, because it's really challenging, but it's also, we've spoken all year, obviously, about the mental health impacts of this pandemic on our kids. And we've been excited every time that the sports have been allowed and every time that anything has been allowed, that we can expand how our kids are able to participate. And I just think that being able to support these creative outlets and not only let them practice, but give them a chance to actually perform, even if it's only once, even if it's not in a traditional setting. I think it's wonderful, and outdoor concerts are wonderful. So it's not that you guys found a way to make something that's different, but not any less good. And I just wanted to say thank you because it would have been very easy to just say, hey, we can't do that this year. And this is such a really, not only a great opportunity for the kids, but just also such an example to them of how to problem solve and come up with a really good solution.
Thank you. And, Christina, also would like to say, because I'm really struck by how lucky we are here in our district. I've had opportunities to speak to a number of people in school board members in other school districts, and they have been concerned with simply opening their schools for instruction. And so I would just want to highlight that we have a lot here, and just the fact that our schools are open for in-person instruction is actually quite incredible. And, we get used to what we have. I know that people have been talking a lot about equity issues this year, but, equity has been something that we've tried to talk about for a long time on the school board, and the pandemic has really revealed how very little equity there is in education. So I'm amazed that, we can have our schools open for instruction. And on top of that, we have our schools open as much as possible for activities, for sports, and for the arts. And I really hope that people here in our community can put this in perspective, because other school children are struggling just to be educated. So it's just, I'm so happy for us, but I'm so sad for so many others who are truly struggling just to simply get an education. I just want to put that out there so that we can put what we have into perspective. And we have this because of all the work you've done, for sure. We couldn't have had this without you guys working, our administrators working 24/7 to make this happen. But I know that if we were not lucky enough to have the resources that we have, all the amount of work could not have produced this without our great good fortune of the resources that we have here too. So I just want to recognize what we have here in our district. Thank you.
And I'd just like to add a huge thank you for the normalcy that you have all managed to produce in what really still is a abnormal time. And thank you to all of you in the administration, and also thank you to the teachers and the custodians and all the boots on the ground, and the families who are all being cautious and following the rules. This really has been a team effort, a community effort in the school district. So I just wanted to make sure to thank you guys as well.
Thank you. This is taking a village. It's taken the whole village to get this done. The community, the staff, collectively together to figure this out. If you saw the 100 days from the PTA today, what they have been able to accomplish this year to support kids is absolutely extraordinary. So
It's truly amazing.
This is a huge partnership. But I find like even though the work is hard, it's easy to do because you're doing it for children. And so that is the ultimate motivator. And so we're going to figure this out, I have no doubt. And I'm glad we're in a place where I can start to let people know we're working on this, and we have a skeleton plan, and we will solidify it in the coming days ahead. And it'll be exciting because I got to tell you, I've been watching our Grilling kids since they were freshmen in the theater program. I could not end this year without providing an opportunity for them to have their own musical. That would have been really, really challenging, a really challenging position to be, especially since we have sports running. So I'll update you again when we're on the 17th. Hopefully I'll have some contracts on the agenda. Okay, so now we have a shift with AP exams, so I'd like Adam to talk about how we're going to move forward based on information that was recently released from the College Board.
Thanks. So I don't know what our viewership typically is among the Greeley students for our board meetings, but I feel like with these last couple of slides and the next couple of slides, it might be going up. This news will be shared formally through a letter tomorrow for Mr. Corsilia. The administrative team here at Greeley has worked very hard in looking at the parameters that the College Board has set up with regard to AP exams to make sure that our students have the right options that will give them the best chance of success on these exams. We know how important they are to our students. So with regard to the AP exams, I'd first kind of ask you to look at the top right box. What we're going to ask our students to do is to first choose between three options. And the three options are going to be taking an AP exam in school on paper, so the traditional paper tests in school. The second option will be taking the exam online at home. And then the third option, which is obviously new for us this year, is that we're going to give them the option if they choose not to take the exam, so they cannot sit for the exam. They won't get a penalty. Obviously, they wouldn't get a score, but they wouldn't get a penalty for not sitting for the exam. So once they pick one of, and they can choose different options for different exams. They don't have to choose just one option for all of the exams if there are multiple courses. Once they choose their pathway from the top right, then that will predicate or to kind of dictate the timing of the test. So we've chosen to give all of the paper exams during that first session, which is May 3rd through May 17th. So if they choose the paper option, they'll be within that window. All of the exams for the students that are taking them at home electronically, all of them that are given, we're going to give during that May 18th to May 28th, but there's a handful of exams that are not given, which are pushed to June 1st to June 11th. Mr. Corsilia's letter includes which exams fall into each bucket. The only exceptions to that would be the studio art AP portfolios. The students are working on them all year, so it's not the traditional AP exam, so those will continue to be required. And then the other thing to consider is the world language and music theory exams are only given paper. They're only paper exams, are not given online. So there's not those three options for those exams down there on the bottom right. So more information will be sent out through a letter from Mr. Corsilia, probably likely tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow, definitely tomorrow. And then adding, do you want to just provide an update on our regular testing?
Yeah, so for the Regents exams and grade 3 through 8 testing, New York State had applied for a waiver from the federal government. Many of the assessments that we give to students, the standardized testing from the state, are actually federally required under ESSA, under the Every Student Succeeds Act. And so the New York State Education Department applied on February 12th to the federal government to waive all of the assessments, grade 3 through 8, plus all the Regents exam. On the 22nd, the United States Department of Education sent out a letter saying they are not granting states blanket waivers for these assessments. So I interpret that, and most did interpret that, as that the New York State letter would be, or the request would be denied. It hasn't formally been denied yet, is my understanding, but it's likely that it will be. On the 2nd, just the other day, just yesterday, New York State sent out a letter from their deputy commissioner previewing some adjustments that they'd like to make for the Regents exam. So you can click one more. So what New York State said in yesterday's letter is that they will not be administering any exams that are not required under ESSA. So any New York State exams that are not required will not be given. So what's required under ESSA? The first thing is for the Regents exams, students in high school have to take one English exam, one math exam, and one science exam. So New York State has said that they're going to continue to give the algebra, the English language arts, and then living environment, and also physical setting or science. The reason for that is because 9th graders, 10th graders will often take either one of those. So those exams will continue to be given. And then the unlikely exams are on the right. The reason that it says anticipated and unlikely is that this was a letter previewing the anticipated action of the Board of Regents from the Board of Regents meeting, which will take place on the 15th and 16th of this month. So the Board of Regents hasn't formally acted, but the State Education Department has kind of previewed what to anticipate. So I expect that the Board of Regents will finalize this on the 15th and 16th, and then we'll get formal final notification that that's the case. Before you go on, just in terms of 3 through 8 testing, the ESSA requirement mandates all states to test all students in math and ELA in grades 3 through 8. So that's not an assessment that the state can choose not to give unless the federal government changes its position on those. We also have to continue to give the science assessments as part of ESSA. We have to provide one elementary science exam and one middle school science exam. So we anticipate those continuing. the federal government did give states some latitude to shorten those exams or change the dates of those exams, but we haven't gotten any information on that from the state, but we anticipate the elementary and middle school exams to continue on and to be given.
Thank you, Adam. So just very quickly, on the agenda tonight, we are moving forward with fall season 2. And so we have 2 sports that need to be approved by the Board of Education because they are considered higher risk. And those are football and volleyball. What is different about this resolution and compared with the winter resolution is now modified for the first time this year is allowed to move forward with their program. So resolution tonight is allowing us to move forward with 7th through 12th grade football and volleyball, and then allowing the district to engage in weekly testing like we did for our winter athletic program. Adam, did you want to just briefly talk about Superintendent's Conference Day since we have a presenter on the agenda tonight?
We do. So March 12th is the Superintendent Conference Day. There will be no instruction for students. It'll be a day of professional learning for our staff. We're really framing the day around turning the corner in this pandemic. We're hoping that the spring will bring dropping COVID rates, and obviously many of our faculty are now vaccinated, and so we're kind of in a position where we're hoping we can connect and reflect is the first part, celebrate and share best practices with regard to what we learned, and then the last part of the day will be a dream and plan, this idea of can we use so many of the things that we learned to like springboard into revisioning education as we think forward. So we don't go back to normal, we kind of create a new normal based on some of the best practices that we learned during COVID. So in order to help us with this dream and plan afternoon session, we were able to secure Jal Mehta, who is a Harvard professor at the Harvard School of Education, who's been doing a lot of writing on leveraging COVID as the disruption of COVID as an opportunity to rethink some of the practices that we knew were not good practices in education, but are ubiquitous in educational systems, and to leverage some of the personalized learning, technology integration, connection between schools and community, things like that. Jal wrote one of my favorite books of all time, favorite education books is In Search of Deeper Learning, where he traveled throughout the United States researching school districts and finding examples of really deep, impactful learning of students. So that book wasn't about COVID, but it really is very well aligned to our philosophy of education here. And based on some of the more recent articles and blogs he's written, we think it'll be a real great opportunity for us to think about how we can use some of the things that we learned during the pandemic to kind of catapult us forward, trying to find the silver lining in some of the really rough year that we've just had.
I just want to say, I hope the board has the opportunity to launch the keynote.
Oh, yes,
And
and
that would be,
yeah,
anyone else?
we'll share with you the agenda. In the morning is what Mark Brackett will be speaking to, so you may also.
Oh, from the Center
Yeah.
for Social Emotional.
Yes,
Oh, that's great.
You may want to tune in, but we'll send you the Zoom links, and you can certainly participate in Superintendent Conference Day.
Sorry, we've ordered books for the board. They're on their way. They just haven't been delivered
Oh, that's
yet,
great.
so
Thank you.
we'll bring you a copy.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so we have a grant on the agenda from the Newcastle United for Youth. Thank you. It feels like every meeting we have a grant from them, which we really appreciate. A generous donation of $4,400 for training for 2 of our Horace Greeley staff members to participate in youth mental health first aid training. You can think of the push to provide regular first aid training for so many people. The idea is that people would then be more able to respond to physical injuries. Youth mental health first aid is similar in that it's for frontline people that work with teenagers mainly, and provide the opportunity for those teenagers to get the support that they need from faculty to have some basic training in youth mental health first aid. So we have 1 faculty member trained in youth mental health first aid now. We're going to add 2 more to that cadre, and then once we have those trainers, this is a train-the-trainer opportunity. Once we have those trainers, then we can use them to train our faculty and staff throughout the district.
Okay, and that concludes our superintendent's report. So David, we'll move into the budget presentation now. If you could. And John and I will be presenting the budget together. tonight, John and I will be presenting the proposed budget to the Board of Education, and then in subsequent meetings the team will be presenting different aspects of the budget for the Board of Education's review before we move into the adoption period, which is mid-April. Also, our full budget is now posted online for the community's review as well. All right, so our proposed budget for the 21-22 school year is $130 million, $460,188, which is about a $2.2 million increase, or 1.73% increase in our budget. So I just want to review, just in general, the budgeting process starts in August. It's been extremely complicated this year because of COVID, and we've been in discussions with our administrative team since the start of the school year. We've been continuing to monitor the governor's press conferences about state aid and his statements regarding state aid and the future of that for our school district. And then we also have to continue to review the guidance to determine whether or not we'll be able to open our buildings traditionally next year, or if we'll have to maintain our current structure at the elementary and middle levels and the high school. So, of course, the foundation of our budgeting process are our essential strategic questions from the Board of Education. Is how do we ensure we continue excellence in our academic and extracurricular programs in a fiscally responsible manner to ensure that all students think deeply, support their thinking, apply problem-solving skills, actively participate in their learning, and acquire content knowledge. And of course, the Board of Education had been 3 years ago engaged in our strategic planning process, where we identified the skills and attributes that are most important in terms of cultivating them as students progress through our K-12 curriculum, as we think about what we aspire for our brilliant graduates to be when they leave our institution. And we have 6 areas in our strategic planning process that we have identified as our priorities. The first is using instructional space to amplify learning, using our technology to differentiate and personalize learning for our students, aligning our K-12 academic program, aligning our social-emotional curriculum for our students K-12, improving our district-wide assessment practices, and cultivating equitable, affirming, and culturally responsive learning environments. And in terms of the foundation for our budget, there's really 4 areas that drive the finances that we present to you. The first is maintaining and expanding our instructional and extracurricular program. The second is our class sizes and our sectioning. The third is our infrastructure, and then of course the largest portion of our budget is our contractual obligations to our units. And then in terms of our operating standards and our planning, our frame is continuing our tradition of excellence, making sure our school environments are safe and supportive of social, emotional, and physical health and well-being, making sure that we are continually improving our instructional program. We're using our space and time and technology in innovative ways. We're maximizing our efficiencies with our personnel. We are ensuring that we are using a high-quality evaluation system for our teachers and our administrators. We're optimizing our communication structures. We're maintaining our class size ratios. We are engaged in research-based and focused professional learning. We maintain that teaming approach at the middle level. We maintain and expand the breadth and depth of our core course offerings and extracurricular activities. We provide a cross-disciplinary experience for our students. We ensure that our district facilities are maintained and efficient and up to date, that our district and school offices function efficiently and effectively for our families, and that we are reducing overtime expenses for our staff. So in terms of our planning for the fall, based on recent guidance that has been articulated by the CDC and then anticipated updating guidance that should be released in the next few weeks from the New York State Department of Health, we are planning on operating our buildings in our traditional structure for the fall with our staff on site supporting our students. And that our students will be able to attend school every day, really. So obviously we'll have some cost savings because the podding and the midday bus run
and the addition of staff to be able to support our current model was expensive. So we don't anticipate having to operate within that model next year. Now, that doesn't mean that some things may remain the same that are in place this year, like students may have to continue to wear masks. In order to open and reduce the amount of size between our desks, if the guidance changes, we may have to use desk shields. Like, these are things that we're thinking about, and as time moves on and new guidance is released, we may or may not have to add additional measures within our classrooms to support our structure. But we definitely believe that we'll be able to open in a traditional way starting in September. Now, if something were to happen in the summer and that should change, then we will prepare to move back into our current model. But we also know, in anticipation of what school may look like next year, that we have to think about lunch differently at really and at the middle level. So when Joe Gramano presents his budget, he's going to talk more about that with you. So in terms of our known impact in our planning process, currently we know our projected enrollments, we know what our contracts are for the CCT and admin units, we know what our ERS is, we know what TRS is, we know our debt services, we know our assessment growth factor, our health insurance premium, our equalization rate, our CPI, and our tax cap. So this is what we know. What we still don't know, and this is typical and it'll become clearer as we progress in the budgeting process, we won't know our state aid allocations until the governor's budget is approved. We're still negotiating 3 contracts, so we're working on that. We still are working on our special education placements and our transportation costs, which are connected to those. And one thing that is different this year in comparison to other years is we're not clear right now if legislation is going to require students who would traditionally age out to be entitled to another year of education. So we have to think about that in our budget planning process because that hasn't been decided yet. And then we don't know our tax valuations. And again, I anticipate more guidance will be released prior to the adoption of the budget, but we don't have all the guidance in terms of how, what are the new considerations on how we should be thinking about opening our buildings in terms of next year. And while I do anticipate something will be released between now and mid-April, that doesn't mean that there could be additional guidance that would be released that we need to plan around before we open in September. So those are the unknowns. Then hopefully some of these, I know some of them will be reconciled before we present the final budget to you for adoption, but some of them may not be, so we have to anticipate planning for that within the budget. Okay, so John, go ahead.
Okay, yes. Here is the illustration of the last 9 budgets. It shows the percentage increases for the blue bar. They are the budget increase, and then the orange bars are the assessment, the tax levy increase. And next slide. And these are the numbers that actually Vicki mentioned earlier. These are the average increases for the budget as well as tax levy, and the bottom 2 are the tax rates. And you can see we have to be determined because we don't know the tax rates yet. And even when we, at the budget adoption time, it will still be an estimated tax rate because we will not have the actual tax rate until late July. Here's the tax levy calculations, and this is pretty complicated, but you can step by step. And then at the end of the day, we have a tax cap is $2,270,845, and that represents 2.03% increase. And later on, you will see when we have presented this budget, we're going all the way to the top, and this is the first time that we're presenting this way. So here we are doing the expenditures. The next 4 slides, we have 2 slides. The first 2 slides are on the expenditure side, and then the last 2 are on the revenues. So here it illustrated a comparison of the 2 years, 2021 and 21-22. the 8 large categories, the increases. And you can see dollar increase and you see the percentage increase. And this is just a summary part. And later on, when we present the individual categories, we're going to the details. And here is the side-by-side comparison, represent the percentage. And, we always talk about this because there's a service industry. So when it comes to the salary and the benefits, always represent over 72, 73% of the total budget. And here, it really hasn't changed that much.
Can I just interpret a really quick question? Sorry, one quick question. Other, at the
Yes.
bottom, what types of things are in there?
Yes, others in there is, for example, what I can think of is the other categories. You have all the insurance, legal fees, audits. This is really catch-all. Everything that is not in the other 7 categories.
I'm just wondering, do you want me to save my question for the end?
No, go ahead.
I just noticed that as far as the percentage increase, actually from the previous slide, it's one of the higher percentage changes. So I just was wondering what types of things were driving it.
Well, our insurance has gone up, and there are a couple in that. When we go into the non-construction, because they fall into the non-constructional, that's the time I think we can go into more detail.
Okay, thank you.
And then the revenue, and I think, I don't have a pointer, but you will see that the property tax increase, when you compare the 2 years, 2021 to 21-22, the increase is 2.270845. That is the tax cap. And we are going to, this budget presentation, we are presenting the increase of the entire tax cap. And then when we talk about the revenue, we're going to the details. And this is also to represent the percentage. And as you know, our largest revenue source is always the property tax. And for 2021 is 87.1, and for next year is 87.3%. And the reason the percentage has gone up is because some other categories are decreasing. For example, the interest income and property rental income, they all has gone down a little bit.
John, I have a question about state aid. I'm just curious
Yes.
about the estimate for state aid because, of course, with COVID, the governor's been highlighting the loss of, income revenue, and we were supposed to be to experience a reduction in state aid for this current year. Did that come to pass?
The
Did we
current
have a
year?
20% decrease?
Which year? 2021?
This year, because there was an unprecedented reduction in state aid.
That's correct.
Mid-year, which never happens. So
And what happened is that when we closed out the last school year, because they were projecting a decrease, so we actually set some money aside. But the reduction of 20% really never materialized. I think the very first payment in August, they deducted 20%. And then because of the CARES Act, the aid that we got, and that all the money is released to us, so there's no reduction
we
for
didn't have
2021.
Yeah,
So
but
we'll get
that
full
tax
aid.
bill with the CARES Act, that's going to be very detrimental once that goes away because there's going to be a big hole in that budget.
Right.
And the state is going to have to make up for a whole
So-
lot. So I'm
so
kind of
we-
worried about that going forward.
So when you look at the 21-22, and we were going pretty aggressive, even though part of the money is only in the promised that $1.9 trillion in the governor's budget, we are indicating the entire amount there. because, there are several reasons. Because this is not a time to be conservative, because if we reduce, shave some off, then we'll have problem, the budget, we probably had to pierce the tax cap and go for the supermajority, and I don't think this is the year. We talked to the superintendent, and this is not a year to go in with the supermajority vote, because the economy hasn't really, it's not on solid grounds yet.
So John, can you just repeat that again? So what's the cap right now?
We're at the cap, exactly at the cap.
And this is the first time we've ever done that.
That's right.
Unprecedented.
Yes, but there's another part to it, is that when you look at the, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Give me 1 second.
We had a lot of unprecedented things happen this year.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
But also, this year, this CPI is low, is 1.23. And the only reason we can get to the 2.03 is because we have assessment growth. So what that means is that the school district, we actually have the property value has gone up. Not value, the assessment has gone up, not value, sorry.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. Thank you.
We're going all the way to the top.
Although I just want to add, it's not unprecedented to go to the tax cap. I mean, we're one of the few districts that have not ever gone to the tax cap. Or is it all?
Well, that's what I was
I
saying.
think a majority of districts go right to the tax cap every year. Is that right, John?
I think Warren and I, we always track this. I think, we always, every year we communicate on this. I think about 60% of the school district in our region, I'm talking about West Putt, Westchester and Putnam counties, about 60% of the school district always go to the top. Because I'm not in their school district, so I don't know whether the reason or they don't feel that they can leave any money on the table. But that has never been our practice, because we always feel that we should ask for the money that we need. But this year we do need that amount.
That's sort of what I'm getting after, because we never do that. So if we're doing it, it's because we always, just as you just said, we ask for what we need.
I think during the next 3 presentations, when we all present our individual budgets, you will see the reason, because we will justify why we are asking for the money that we are asking.
And that's where I was leaving with that, Vicki. I mean, we haven't done this as long as I've been on the board. Actually, when I was on the board, before I was on the board, I've never seen us go to the tax cap. Because, like you said, John, we look at how do we, instead of saying this is the money we're getting and how do we spend it, we look at saying what do we need and how do we get to that point. So the district's always done a very good job at understanding how do we improve our education for the students of our district and come up with a budget based on that, a bottom-up budget, instead of saying, well, we got 2 points, let's figure it out.
So for example, with the school year, this current school year, 2021, our tax cap was over 3%.
Yep.
Yet our tax levy increase was 1.19. It's just that, because we felt that's the right amount, and, that's sufficient for us to support our great education, and that's what we asked for.
That's what I was saying. This is a, everyone keeps talking about unprecedented. We've seen a lot of unprecedented things happen this year. And as Vicki said, we don't go there normally. We've never gone there. So if we have to get there, we'll go there. The presentation's great so far. I have to go through the details, John. It's the first time I really got a chance to look at it, but so far so good.
Also, what Christine said, the entire budget is on the website. The line-by-line budget.
Yep. I was also going to say that, when we were looking at budgets last year, we were right at the beginning of this COVID nightmare. And we were very conscious in looking at the budget for this current school year at this time last year and through the whole budget process, that we were in a time of great uncertainty, not only as a school district, but as a community, and that our families and our taxpayers taxpayers were all, all of us were pretty much in panic mode and not knowing what this was going to mean for any of us in terms of education and in terms of finances. And so I think we were so conscious of that during the budgeting process last year, which was correct. But also knowing that we were going to have to see what this year was, and knowing that we might have to look at the budget differently this year, understanding what COVID was going to mean for both the school district and the community. So I feel very comfortable with the look that we took at it last year, but also with the look that we can now take at it this year, knowing what the reality has turned out to be in so many different ways. And hopefully seeing the end of this rather long tunnel.
Hillary, I'm glad you reminded us, because I remember last year, because of the budget vote was also delayed, we actually went through several versions. I think, the board asked the administration to look, see, what are the areas that we can cut. So we went through several versions and we finally landed where we landed. And, there was a right budget.
Should I say something? Can I jump in for a sec? Hi.
How are you, Jane?
Hi, guys. I just wanted to reiterate that we did go through a lot of machinations with last year's budget, and we did hear from the community, which we appreciated the comments from community members, and yet some fell on opposite sides, some feeling that we should go up all the way to the tax cap like some other districts were doing, and we had heard other districts were doing that, so that they had funds to handle what expenses that we thought were coming down the pipe and cuts in state aid. And then you had other people saying, no, please do not do that and keep our taxes low and don't go up to the top of the tax platform. And so we know that everyone has some different views on this, but I feel that we landed in a really good place last year. And so I really feel confident that what we're doing this year is based on the data, the best data that we have for what we had to spend last year and what we're going to spend going forward. And I appreciate all the hard work that goes into this, and I know that you're really putting a lot of thought into it, and I know that it may not be typical for us to go up to the tax cap, but I know that there's a reason for doing it in terms of, maintaining what we have and anticipating what we're going to need. So thank you.
Okay, so it's okay if I move forward here? So in terms of our enrollment projections, because this is where we usually get the most feedback, so I just want to remind the community that we have thresholds for class size, and these are negotiated between the Teachers Association and the administrators, and then approved by the Board of Education. It's outlined in the CCT's contract. So for kindergarten, it's 20 students, first grade is 23, 2 through 4, it's 25, and 5 through 12, it's 28. So this just is an overview of our enrollment projections through 2025, 26. And then this is what our class sizes look like and our sections right now for our elementary school students, with the understanding that class sizes, sections are subject to change over the summer once we have our actual enrollment numbers and our schedules are finalized for our students. So this is what our class sizes look like at Grafflin, Roaring Brook, and West Orchard. This is what our middle levels look like at Seven Bridges and at Bell School. And then this is what our high school class size projections look like at Greeley. So in terms of the budget, when we go through our individual presentations, we do have a few personnel additions that we'll be talking about. The first is our Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Wellness was added after the budget process was completed last year, so that position is in this budget. Also, based on our experience this year and the level of technology support in terms of instruction and infrastructure and communication needs of this district, we are recommending that we add a position, which will be an Associate Director of Instructional Technology and Communication, that will support primarily Josh Block and the work that he does. And I just would like to remind the Board of Education and the community that Josh is in charge of instructional technology, math, and the entire infrastructure. So we can't express our gratitude for all the work that he has done this year to support us in this incredible model that none of us anticipated, but the outcome of that is that we need to add some more support, or at least I'm recommending we add some more support in that particular area, because it would benefit all of us as we move forward. And then we had a secretary that we added to special education this year to support Ellen. And we are hiring a new payroll clerk due to retirement, and we are recommending an increase to the part-time person in that office in order to support the transition moving forward as we onboard a new staff member in that really important role.
Is that temporary?
No, we plan on keeping that in the budget. That was actually a full-time position that got reduced at some point. And then the other thing that the facilities committee is recommending, which I'm sharing with you tonight, which we actually need a decision on before the end of the evening because of some noticing requirements, is that maybe 2 years ago, I shared with you in 2018 in December that we had a steam leak in front of Greeley. And so we have to move forward with making a decision on how to handle that. We did a patch repair, but we either have to replace that pipe between the main building and the gym, or come up with a different option to heat the gym. And so the facilities committee is recommending we move forward and create a boiler system for the gym building rather than replace the pipe. So we have the money to do it, we just need voter approval to move it and to use it. And so that would be a separate proposition on the agenda. Warren, did you want to say something about this?
It makes, we met with John and Joe, and it makes sense to do this because we could create a boiler room inside the gymnasium area, or we could build an extension outside, put an extension on the building and do that. Or we could run another line. And this seems, at this point, the most economical and effective way of heating an independent building. If we ran another line, we might actually have another steam leak with the feeder. So this way it's independent and it'll work.
Is this leak accounting, is this leak accounting for why there's steam coming off the parking lot?
That's this problem?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Even though it's patched, it's not as bad as what it was. I remember it was like all this steam was coming out of the middle of, by the field. So, I mean,
It's sort of a very interesting look, but it's not very effective.
Yes, it is still leaking right now.
Yeah,
And we had
semi-emergency.
We had two options. You know, we have Holly and Warren on the facilities committee, so we looked into it, and there are two possibilities. One is, like Warren said, build it outside, and that would have cost over $1 million. And right now, the proposal is to put it inside. There is a spare gym, the small, not gym, the locker room, the small room. And it's not a girls' locker room, it's not a boys' locker room, the extra one. And this is just the right size, we'll put it there. And the important thing I want to stress is that because we're moving the money from the reserve fund, and therefore there's no tax impact. It's not going to increase the budget, it's not going to increase the taxes.
But we need voter approval.
Right.
I just wanted to ask in comparison to this, could you talk about the West Orchard roof? Because I know that that's been an issue as well, and we've been trying to find the money for that. But I understand that the roof is being addressed, but sort of in a piecemeal way.
Yes, it's going to be addressed on a piecemeal way. I think our facilities committee did report out last time, but I'll go over that, and then you'll see it in Joe's budget. What is happening is that this past summer, because we have $100,000 in the interfund transferable capital, so we repaired the gym part. So that's $100,000. And the whole project to do the entire West Orchard is going to be over $1 million. But we don't really have that kind of funds, so we thought that we'll do piecemeal. So our recommendation in this budget, the one that we're presenting, is that $100,000 interfund transfer increased to $360,000. So that is in the budget. And so we will do another patch, another part. And then the
I'm
following
sorry,
year,
wait, 360 on top of the 100? Or
100 is spent already.
That's spent, okay.
Okay,
right.
so what we are saying is this summer we'll do 360. And then we'll see how everything falls. And the next year we'll do another piece. Right now, I will not be able to tell you for 22, 23 how big a piece and how large amount that we're going to ask for. But right now in the budget is 360.
And would that mean that the roof would be halfway done because you're almost at 500? Does it correlate with that?
Not quite half, but it's getting close.
Okay.
So we are addressing that.
Okay. That's what I'm balancing
Yes.
this
And
against,
when
because that's the other big.
When Joe presents the budget, you will hear, right now, the areas that we are having problem with are the roofs. And I think, Vicki, you and I, we visited the BOCES, and we know that when roofs have problem, it's a major issue.
I do think about that all the
I
time when we
know.
talk about
It was
roofs. I'm
quite-
very concerned when I hear that the roofs are
So
in trouble.
we're hoping that in 3 or 4 years, we can address the West Orchard roofs, and the next one will be Rodenbrook.
Right, so in the grand scheme of things, comparatively, spending this 650 on the really gym boiler is the right priority.
Well,
Because I'm hearing, because the
think-
roofs are being addressed.
I think, I remember when the facilities committee reported out, Holly mentioned that, when you go outside, when it's cold, you can actually see the steam, and then Hillary also mentioned that. It is still leaking, and anytime it can really, the can burst, can get to where we were before, then we have to have another emergency project, we have to fix it again.
Right, so it is a semi-emergency
It is
situation.
sort of,
Right.
we're just hoping that we can get through this summer, this winter, and then just wait till, get this done in the summertime.
Okay, very
So
good.
this is more urgent than the West Orchard roofs.
Yeah, Vicki, so
Right.
it might help to say that in the facilities committee, what we had recommended was to work with the budget on the roofs, since once you do West Orchard, there's going to be Roaringbrook, and there's going to be continuously roofs needing something. So we thought that addressing that through the budget would be the more practical way, and dealing with the proposition, and dealing with it fast before we had a bigger leak and a bigger project. And
Right, that obviously, yes,
Yeah.
that's the choice. That's the choice here.
yeah, and we recommended, cutting it back even further, where like originally the concept had been to build a boiler room on the outside of
Right.
the gym. So
No, I understand, yeah. I guess in the back of my mind, what I do think about is that situations with roofs also change. So although you make those decisions about that, things do progress, but it sounds like the roofs are still under control.
So am I hearing that we're okay with moving forward with?
Right, I just wanted some sort of update on the comparison.
And the reason why we had to have a decision on this today is because at the next board meeting, we would have asked the lawyer to craft the language for you to approve, so you can direct the district clerk to place this in the newspaper. And there's a deadline for that.
No, you got that there's a timeline for the proposition to go on, so we have to be on track.
All right, so I know that the board had asked us to review our COVID-related expenditures for this year, so, John, did you want to just go over this slide?
Yes. So there are two parts to it. One is the 1920, and that's what we spent last year. And the other part is the estimated 2021. So there are two parts. One is the personnel related and the non-personnel related. I think part of the numbers that you have seen it before, I think last September, October we presented this, but the numbers have been updated. Mainly, you can see what we added was that some more of the PPE that we use and some equipment. And then also for the transportation, we have additional midday run cost. And this is our estimated cost for this year. And just for information, these are the numbers that we reported to West Club because they were collecting the data. So this was important.
Okay, so in terms of our budget summary, again, we're proposing a budget of $130,460,188 for 1.73% increase, and one proposition for vote of consideration for the Greeley Gym boiler room of approximately $650,000 that will have no impact on the tax levy. It's just us moving money and the voters approving us to spend it. And in terms of our highlights, we're responding to the strategic questions and our strategic plan. We're meeting our operating standards. We're supporting physical, social, and emotional safety. We're providing funding for equity and diversity professional development. We're increasing our leadership capacity and oversight in our technology systems and district communications. We're maintaining a robust professional learning required for post-pandemic instructional model. We're making adjustments based on our enrollment. And we're maintaining a budget below the tax cap to ensure community members are eligible for the property tax rebate. And so our next presentation will be on the 17th, and that will be curriculum, technology, special education, and athletics, and then followed by our operation maintenance, non-structural budget, revenue tax rate, and contingency budget, with our goal of having a budget for your consideration for adoption on the 14th. And right now, based on information we received today, it looks like we're going to have a traditional election and budget voting process on site. If that changes, we will, of course, keep the board updated, but it's not going to be a mail-in process like it was last year. And then our PTA-sponsored community budget forums will be on Tuesday, April 6th by webinar at 9:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. And then finally, all along the way, we accept comments both at the meeting and in writing before we will present the final budget for the board's consideration. So if the community would like to share their thinking with us, they can email John and I directly, and they can email the Board of Education directly. So just want to thank everyone, and again, I want to thank John and his team for all the work that they continue to do to be able to present a solid budget for the board's consideration. And this is the first step in a long process, and if we need to add more meetings like we did last year because things changed due to the pandemic, we will do that, and we'll make sure that we have all the information that we need in order to put a budget before the Board of Education for adoption. Just like we did last year. So hopefully we can stay on target and meet our dates, but if we need to make adjustments, we will certainly do so along the way.
I just want to thank you, the administration, but also the building level administrators and all the staff for all contributing to the budget process. I know that everyone does that at different levels, and I know that it goes on all year, and it starts right after budget season is over. So I just want to acknowledge all the work, and thank you for keeping us on track during the unexpected COVID seasons which started a year ago when we had no idea what was happening. So thank you for keeping us within budget and managing all the incredible things you managed in that time.
Thank you, Vicki. I would like to say I feel like we have a better handle on what school will look like next year than we did last year when we were budgeting, so I feel much more comfortable presenting this budget to you this year. I just can't, based on the vaccine and the updated guidance and the fact patterns coming out of the CDC, I'm very optimistic that while we may have to do a few things differently, we will be in an instructional model that will support on-site instruction for all of our students. Now, I say that with the understanding that there might have to be special consideration for some of our students because I don't anticipate there'll be a vaccine ready for our kids. So we understand that is, we need to be thinking about that, but that if we need to provide them a model that supports some students learning remotely because of specific needs, that won't impact this budget. So we don't have to plan in a way that would significantly impact our budgeting process if we have some students who have to learn from home. We'll be able to manage that within the context of this current budget. Because we will be in a strong place to be able to support all of our staff on site because of vaccinations. But again, those are decisions that will make as more information is released moving forward. So we have 6 months basically before school opens again. A lot can happen in 6 months. So, all right, thank you, David. Can you bring Jane back to the? We can end this and.
I have a very small suggestion. Since this is our district budget and on the page on CCSD budget highlights, it's just a very small suggestion, but something jumps out at me at the very last bullet point, which says maintain a budget below the tax cap to ensure community members are eligible for property tax rebate. But I mean, I think it's broader than that. We want to maintain a budget below the tax cap to ensure fiscal sustainability, I would say. And, you know, to get the tax rebate, but I just think that since these are our highlights, it seems like an odd reason to pick. I mean, it's an important reason to a lot of people. It just seems,
we can make adjustments to the language. Thank you. We'll do that.
Okay.
Okay, and that concludes everything I planned to say tonight. I just want to make sure that Jane is still here with us, so since she's on video, I just want to make a call on you especially. Not to put you on the spot. Just make sure that you're, you know, getting heard.
Right, I am.
I'm all good, thank you. No, I'm good. I appreciate it. It's and I just want to thank everybody for all their hard work tonight. It's a lot going into tonight's meeting, so thank you all.
All right, thanks everyone. We shared a lot of information tonight about the end of the year, about the budget. This is a great place to work, and I feel very fortunate to be able to be in a position where we were able to present different pathways forward in terms of budget planning for next year and in terms of planning for our students for the end of the year. So not for 1 second do I take for granted where we are working in the place that I'm able to work in. So I just want to thank the Board of Education and our team and the larger community for positioning us in a place where I feel like we're able to tonight share some important information for our broader community that really takes into account how to best meet our students' needs for the rest of this year and for next year. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, and to be continued. This is budget season. Okay then, so we will move to committee reports.
Audit committee has a meeting on May 20th.
We have a CARES committee meeting coming up in the next couple of weeks. Lisa, I know you sent around a date.
Next Monday. Next Monday?
Next Monday.
Monday the 8th.
Right, so we will report on that at the meeting following. Any liaison or other, I know we have a policy on the agenda, so we don't have to talk about that now. We'll get to it. Yeah. Is that it for committee reports for today? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I don't have anything. We can probably have more on the next one.
Right. Okay then. So we'll move on to our regular public comment period. The board welcomes public comments, and we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Board members may have a discussion among themselves regarding comments presented. So please come up to the microphone and identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Mofield, and I'm the president of the Chappaqua PTA. And you can't tell, but I have a big smile right now under my mask. And my eyes are smiling, my face is smiling too, because I am, in addition to being the Chappaqua PTA president, I'm the senior class liaison, and I have a senior, so I'm like cheering out here. This is amazing news, and thank you so much for pivoting so quickly when the governor issued the new regulations. And I can tell you that my cell phone has been buzzing nonstop since you announced that people, the senior parents are thrilled. So, and I know all the seniors will be even more thrilled when they hear the news from their parents. So we really appreciate everything that you've done for the seniors and all the students, but especially for those end of the year events that you talked about at the very beginning, and that you were able to so quickly decide to do something to allow them to have some in-person events. And in addition to the seniors, I also thank you for all the people who support the arts in our community and our students in the arts, and the fact that we'll be able to have some end-of-the-year concerts outside and a Greeley musical outside. It's thrilling. It's really, 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 I mean, it makes you feel like, I'm sure too on the stage, that you have like this, don't you feel like you just have an incredible new sense of hope that we're moving in the right direction? And you guys have been doing everything that you can do the whole time, and we've appreciated it, but we're really ready to pull out of this. And so thank you, because if you make it feel like we're going to pull out, and we appreciate it very much. On the issue of the arts, I also wanted to share with you guys the great news that the Chappaqua PTA launched the after-school music program, first ever after-school music program, to help the 4th through 8th graders maintain a connection with their instruments while they weren't able to play in school. And so far, so good. We've got 3 days under our belt, and they're doing great. And I've listened in on a few lessons, and everybody seems really happy, and we've gotten a lot of good reports, and they really, really miss playing their instruments and singing in school. And so the sooner we can get that back in the schools, the better, but we hope that you'll have some continued interest with students that maybe might have not had the opportunity to continue except for this. What else do I want to tell you? Oh, we just passed the 100th day of school. So thank you to all of our teachers who made it 100 days, and thank you guys for pushing us along to 100 days and keeping us here. And we're just all good news. And in the PTA, we're looking forward to the next 80. We have a lot of great plans, and maybe some of them are going to be even better than we expected with the new regulations that came out. So the last thing I want to tell you is on April the 7th, the PTA will be having its annual meeting where we vote on the proposed slate of officers for next year, 21-22. And following that meeting, we're very happy that we will have Dr. Claude Steele, who is a professor at Stanford University in California, and he will be on Zoom with us to speak about implicit bias and talk to us about his book entitled Whistling Vivaldi. And so if you have not read the book, I hope that you do before the meeting, and that you're able to come to the meeting and participate. And I hope that anyone listening in on the Zoom presentation also will mark their calendar and come to that, because I think it's part of our plan this year to really focus on diversity and equity and inclusion. And Dr. Steele is a renowned presenter and researcher and professor, and we're really thrilled that he's going to be there. So anyway, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Anyone else? I know there's only one person in the audience. All right, there are no further public comments. I just want to say a few words about what we heard, since we can have discussion following public comment. I just want to congratulate the PTA on their accomplishments. I read the 100-day progress report, and it was truly amazing. I encourage everyone to take a look at that report. I'm just struck by the wealth that our PTA brings to us and the enrichment. The programs are so truly impressive. They're very substantive and at a very high professional level, and I just want to recognize all of that from the programs you bring for special education, all of the experts that you bring in,
theater, Young Writers Conference, all of the programs. We brought in on diversity already. It's a very new committee. We have STEM programs at a very high level. Of course, the after-school music and cultural enrichment. I just want to thank you for operating so efficiently and so effectively during these difficult times. I mean, just in the same way that our school is operating. You guys have done tremendous work, and I really, I want to recognize you for your high level of professionalism and really important programs that you brought to the district. Thank you. Okay. And so now we will move on to approvals and ratification. We have items 3.1. I'd like to take items 3.1 through 3.3 together. These are the minutes. These are the minutes of the February 8th, February 10th, and February 24th board meetings. So may I have a motion and a second to approve the 3 items?
I move.
Okay, I will second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now we move on to item 3.4. This is policy 9027 on health insurance. So I will move item 3.4. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So we have discussion. Does someone want to weigh in?
So I'd like to go through, this is a policy we've been working on. It's regarding health insurance, and we have it's sort of mandatory. We have to do it today, so we're going to wait the second reading, go through it quickly on take as long as we need to take. We'll look at the first reading and make sure there's nothing that will change, and we can move forward. Christine?
I think the language around Medicare is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
We need to have this language in our policy in order to move forward, so there's a clear understanding of how we're handling Medicare B reimbursement, and so that's why this is being presented to the board tonight as written.
Okay. And the motion also includes waiving a second reading of the policy, so I just want to make that clear.
Can we put the
Okay,
policy?
I think it's self-explanatory. It's Medicare language that we need. I don't have any
Can
further.
we put the policy up?
Yeah. Did you plan on putting it up?
No, I think it's self-explanatory. Yeah, I don't have any comments beyond the language.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. So.
I wanted to make sure we had it up so we could see it, the audience could see it.
Yes. Okay. Okay, I'm hearing that the board has no further questions on the policy, so I guess we're ready to vote. Okay, so all in favor of item 3.4, please say aye. 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 Okay. Thank you. Okay, good. All right, good work, Policy Committee. Yeah, thank you, Policy Committee.
Okay, so I present 4.1 instructional to the Board of Education for consideration.
Okay, I will move item 4.1 instructional personnel. May I have a second?
Second.
Hillary seconded. Is that Hillary? Okay. Okay. Any questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I present 4.2 non-instructional as presented.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for item 4.2.
Second.
Okay. Questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now we'll go to the consent agenda, which is for our items 5.1 through 5.10. Would anyone like to move any of these items out of the consent agenda? No? Okay. Any discussion on any of the items? Most of them were discussed in the superintendent's report, so.
Consent agenda first.
No.
Did I not do that? Yes. Well, I was asking whether anyone wanted to remove something from the consent agenda, so I wanted to do that before moving the entire agenda.
Just making sure.
Yeah. Okay, so seeing that no items are getting moved out, so may I have a motion on the entire consent agenda? Okay. I will second. So any further comments on the items? We heard about most of them from the superintendent's report.
Just lots of good news.
Yeah. So, yeah, I do want to thank the Newcastle United for Youth for the very generous grant for mental first aid. Let me see, am I missing another gift here? I think that was it for this meeting. Okay. All right, all in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anything from facilities? No. Okay, financials. May I have a motion on item 7.1 to acknowledge receipt of the claims auditor report for January 2021?
I move 7.1.
I will second 7.1. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are at notice of future meetings. Our next meeting will be March 17th at 7:30 p.m. We will continue the budget presentations with curriculum and technology, special education, and athletics. And following that will be a Wednesday, March 24th meeting with budget presentations on operations and maintenance, non-instructional, revenue, tax rates, and contingency. And the meetings will be at the Horace Greeley High School auditorium. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn the meeting at 10:04 p.m.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning the meeting at 10:04 p.m., please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, thanks, everybody.